Today we are going to speak about something very special, and you know that I'm on a hunt to develop the stories, to find the special stories that connect and help me with my point of view, right? So during the pandemic, prior, we developed the special skills of communication through the social media, but there's another way of communication that we are missing out, and it's on a strategy that's built on something very unique that we probably do not even think about. We have a special guest. Her name is Kim, and she's going to talk to us today about strategy that she's using in a poker game. So Kim, here we are.
Yes.
We are talking about poker. In all of my life, I would never thought I would talk about poker. And people will probably think, what is a controversial topic to talk about, poker, and also bring God into it. So, but you have developed something very special that got me so intrigued, and I actually had my aha moment into that. Can you please elaborate more about your strategy?
Yes. I was, the way that it had started is I was praying one time, but either way, it's praying to the Lord, and He had shown me what was needed. And what I have found is poker is a master at our emotions. If you can master your emotions, and they call the emotions in poker tells, and when you think about it, every emotion has a reaction. So with playing, you learn that, you can't show your anger, you can't show your anxiety, your worry, you can't show that, you're upset or you may be bluffing or something like that. I mean, in Texas Hold'em, and I'm only talking about Texas Hold'em, a live game where you're sitting next to people, everything you do or say can actually give them a tell as to how they may play their cards. So that's the one thing that I realized. And when it comes to the Lord, what's so crucial about it is when we look at the attributes of the fruitages of the Spirit, well, there's patience, there's peace, and there's self-control. And when you look at those attributes and you look at how you would play the game, you have to display those things perfectly. And those players that are doing well, they're the ones who have understood, and they don't, let's say, they're able to maintain and not show their, what we would call tells or emotions, so that a person can't bluff them or whichever.
It's very unique game, right? And of course, I'm not a player, so I don't do it. However, I was always intrigued and fascinated by the mastering of the control, how they can control the situation. And I think this method will be very beneficial if we can apply to the anger management, for example, or in the schools even, right? In the politics, we know that. And in the many other cases, and even in the marriages, right?
Yeah.
So if we can master our
Yes.
emotions, I think, like you said, it will come out as attributes from the Bibles, right?
Right.
Self-control, the peace,
Yep.
And I think the biggest thing, when the person can control their emotions, they control the world.
Well, and when you think about the attributes from the fruitages of the Spirit, and if you're playing poker, one thing I will say, you're usually for hours. So it's definitely possible to take those emotions and you take that out into your life. And yeah, I mean, why are you getting angry when you really don't have to, or show that you're angry at a time where you need to be at a peaceful state, or have patience, or show that kindness and goodness, which is also part of the attributes of the fruitages of the Spirit. So it definitely will help do that. And poker usually will get a bad rep, but it is not as it is said to be. I mean, you know what you're doing. It's about primarily how you play your two cards. And how you play your two cards is doing it with the fruitages of the Spirit, the patience, the peace, the self-control, your breathing, everything is involved when it comes to that, and then bringing that on the outside. And it does make a difference.
Just talking to you about this subject matter in the past, right? That's how we developed, that's why you're here. I was like so always fascinated, you know, about the facts, about the history, about, you know, what it involved in that, how they think. You cannot even see how they think. And if you can hide your thinking method, what you think, this is just phenomenal thing. And I know that it's still a debate whether it's the poker game originated in Persia or in France. However,
yes, that's true.
It's became like a big phenomenon.
Yeah,
it's like a world championship right now. It's a big sum, you know, it's being played. We don't talk about, of course, the sum, but the players usually develop this character, and it's not easy to get to that state to be in a championship. So please talk to us more about.
And also too, just being female, there's not many females that play the game. And primarily, I feel, this is my opinion, I feel that is because of the time that's involved and the average. Now, of course, there are those that are above or below the average, but the average female, they have children. They cannot afford to be away from their families. Children and husband, they can't afford to be away from their families 4, 5, 6, 7 hours at a time. And it does take a lot of study and time. So with that, you don't have as many females. I mean, now you'll see the younger ones and you'll see the older ones. But overall, it is not. One of the most challenging things for a female, though, is to get comfortable with the male energy, the energetics of men. They're very strong. Normally intimidating. They just have to say a word and you like cringe because they're male. And that is what the male energy is. It's part of the testosterone kind of a thing, but that's normal. And as a female, it's just, you know, it's first you learn to get used to that because, and it's not a personal thing, it's just you're playing around males and this is how they are. And I say they because male energy in a sense. I don't like the word energy, but the energetics still, I mean, they have, that's why we are different.
Yes, correct. I meant to that.
Yeah, and they get, you know, and females too. I mean, they have to deal with us, and I think a lot of times they're uncomfortable because it's like they don't know what we're going to do. It's like, it's a female. What is she going to do? What is she doing? Like,
that is so true.
And you could see it. You could see it on their faces like, okay, what is she? All right, then.
I love it. Yes, we're so unpredictable, and that's what one of my things is that yes, women, we think differently, and of course we are so easier to expose our emotions versus the men, and men are easier to control the emotions versus the men because they're taught to hide their emotions, do not showcase their weaknesses, do not cry. Women are like opposite. We want to cry, we want to showcase. So that's probably why we maybe, you know, struggling with the poker.
That is another factor for sure, and you do have to learn to, maintain and not show that part. But that's again having the self-control, you know, and that is where the fruitages come in. I think of it all the time. I'm always in prayer because self-control is huge. It's in everything we do. We need to show self-control. Many times in so many different facets. So that's one of the most, when I think about the fruitages, and if you have self-control, then of course you have patience, of course you have peace, kindness, goodness. So many of them, you have one, it's going to help with many of them. And it's just very important when it comes to poker, for sure.
I absolutely agree with that because think about that. If the person can, you know, control their, you know, anger, you know, he will create also peace around him, right? He'll be able to kind of maybe look at it from a different perspective, and instead of showcase or impart his anger into someone else, he'll be able to take it back, sit back, think about that, and then rationally maybe approach that issue with another person and such.
Right, with the love and kindness, because your mind will go through that. But if you just automatically just react, the reaction may not be profitable to your situation.
That will be an excellent topic for the leadership, you know, in the corporations, you know, learning how for the corporates to deal with their employees, right? Every time, you know, or HR to bring them learn how to deal with the people because we have different personalities, different genders, ages, all of the gaps right there. So I think it will be a very good strategic move for them to learn that path, how players play in poker. But let's take a moment, and I wanted to speak to the women out there who are maybe struggling to control their emotions, who are probably struggling, not they are struggling the most, but the people that it affects the most. If woman is in pain, they usually yell at people that they love the most. Oh. So how can they control their emotions without imparting them or hurting somebody else or their loved ones? What would you tell them right now?
Well, as a Christian, the first thing I would say, look at Galatians 5:22. And you take those attributes and you start breaking them down. Think about how you are, what you say, and you want to think about how you are, the situation, what you say. Of course, many times it's instant, so your reaction is very fast. But after that, if you realize that you've done something, then think about that. Always be in prayer. I always say, if you're going to have a situation, if you know you're going to talk to someone, if you know that you have a problem with things, you always need to pray on that first. And the Lord will help you. Otherwise, if you're not praying and if you're just reacting, think about yourself. How come you react that way? Question yourself as to that. Why did I yell? Why am I sad? Why am I reacting in a way that is negative per se? And then you can find answers that way too, because quite often it has to do with you. It's not the person that you're actually angry with. Many times it could be you that you're angry with for whatever reason that may be. But you need to ask that. If you ask yourself that question, I feel most of the times with prayer, you will get the answer.
That's excellent, Kim. I cannot wait to have you next time, because you are not just the phenomenal of that strategy, you're also a bodybuilder. And we're going to talk about that with someone else, because you are ripped. You are just to the of the chain. You are just phenomenal woman with so many talents. So I cannot wait to talk to you next. Yes. But until then, guys, I want you to really remove yourself from people, places, and things. Detox. That's when going to be your first point of strategy to become calmness. When you remove those people, places, and things from your life and detox yourself from the toxic relationship, places, and habits, you will be able to get a little bit closer to the path of self-control. This is Ilona, and I call myself the God's masterpiece, and I'm very highly favored by God. We will see you next time.